what do you do at the department?
I'm an investigator.
All right, and most recently, what have you been investigating?
The trial of Jack and the Beanstalk.
And read your report here, and it says, correct me if I'm wrong, about 11 a.m. on April 1st, 1997.
This is correct.
You received a message to attend the house of Mrs. Laura Jones and her son Jack, the accused. And repeatedly, you've had to come to that house multiple other times, is that right?
Multiple times.
Multiple times, and
Relevance, any other case besides the case, what's the purpose of bringing up any relevance of him showing up to the house?
it's not really promised. It's relevant to the fact of him being accused. It shows that the accused has had past trouble with the law. As a matter of fact, he has a past with this kind of behavior.
I'm going to sustain the objection at this point. I may allow it later.
Now, what was the nature of you being called there?
Mrs. Jones called me very upset with her son Jack there. I arrived at the Jones residence and observed a very large man, who I now know to be deceased, Mr. Arthur Jones, lying on the ground with an obvious head wound. Next to him was the trunk of a large green beanstalk growing out of the ground. This beanstalk had been recently severed about 4 feet from the ground, and sap still oozing from the cut. The rest of the beanstalk, which was approximately 1 kilometer long, was lying in the field next to the Jones' house. At the house, I found Miss Nora Jones, who was very upset, with her son, Jack Jones. And he was holding a goose with an egg, which was found to be made of gold.
A goose and a golden egg. Now, does this goose and golden egg belong to Mr. Jones or his mother?
No, they did not.
They did not. Who did they belong to, did you come to find out?
They were of the Giants.
The Giants. You mean the deceased?
Arthur Giant.
What else did you find?
On the kitchen table of the house was an axe. And on the blade of that axe, which we recovered with forensic investigation, was residue of beanstalk.
Is that beanstalk being able to chop down?
Yes.
What did you proceed to do at this point?
I asked Jack to wait outside. I have a statement from Miss Jones.
Ms. Jones. That later. Anything else? What else did you do?
I confiscated the goose and the egg from him.
Nothing else?
I then brought Jack in. I told him, I said, Jack, I'm arresting you for the murder of Arthur Giant. You do not have to say anything, but anything you do say will be taken down and used as evidence. Do you wish to say anything?
And what did Mr. Jones say?
Jack replied, I never meant to kill him. I thought he was going to eat me. I was scared. I'm really sorry. I only wanted to make my mother happy.
Never meant to kill him. All right.
I took Jack to the police station. He was fingerprinted and charged. He then made a full statement. I then attended to the home of Miss Martha Giant and told her of her husband's death. I then took a statement from her.
All right. Well, Mr. Morris, that's all we have for you. Prosecution rest.
Cross-examination by the defense.
Good evening, Mr. Morris.
Good evening.
So you say you knew Jack before this occurrence?
very many occurrences.
How many occurrences?
So with 7,
Jack ever seem remorseful about his prior crimes?
to some extent.
Some. Could you describe his remorse?
Very untruthful.
Untruthful, so he's a liar. So would you classify Jack Jones as a liar?
No,
No, you wouldn't.
no.
Saying that Jack Jones isn't a liar, when you took his statement, do you believe he made any false statement?
I do not.
No. Something about the beanstalk. What was the width of the beanstalk?
The width of the beanstalk was
Do you not have knowledge of the width of the beanstalk?
4 feet.
4 foot. Okay, 4 foot. Okay. Jack Jones is 12, 13 years old. How big would you say a 4-foot tree is?
Fairly moderately large.
Within an hour of escaping the giant's home, getting down the beanstalk, he had time to cut a whole beanstalk, 4-foot range. Do you truly believe that, Inspector Morris? You being a detective,
A beanstalk, this beanstalk that has been cut down.
why this beanstalk? Is there anything different about this beanstalk that you can detect,
There's
possibly from the
nothing.
evidence that you gained?
The evidence on the axe is the same as the beanstalk.
Well, the cut on the beanstalk, was the cut clean?
Yeah.
It wasn't clean, so it could have been a break.
The axe has beanstalk on it.
Oh, there's no debate that he took a swing at the beanstalk. Just like anybody could kick a rock, that doesn't mean they threw the rock through the window. You see my accusation, Mr. Morris? See, the kid struck the beanstalk, scared out of his life. A giant, a massive giant, chasing him down a beanstalk. A 4-foot beanstalk for a huge giant, and it didn't wobble, it didn't break, it didn't tumble. And you truly believe that a 12-year-old cut that tree and intentionally killed that boy? There's no way that's possibly true. And Inspector Morris knows it. So, defense has, thank you.
Can you redirect this witness?
None, Your Honor.
Witness may be excused. Prosecution, call your next witness.
Prosecution psychiatrist Christina Hollingsworth, Your Honor.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Ms. Hollingsworth, I have here an official psychological report from Mr. Jones. You pulled out? So, let's see what you got. Here.
Would you happen to have a copy for the defense?
I will do not right now. If you'd like to have one, we can get you one. As a matter of fact, here you are. Now then, something interesting that I noticed about the prosecution's claim. How old is Mr. Jones?
He was 20 years old when I was
20 years old. And what is the legal age for a minor, the deciding age, if you're a minor or an adult? That would be
18 or 19.
18 or 19. All right. Not 12, right?
Yeah.
Not 12. All right. And I believe you mentioned in the report that he did have some separations issues with his father. He had no father figure in his life. Yes. Correct? But you said that that never leads to any kind of insanity, acting brash.
No.
As well as, let me make sure, just to make sure I've got my facts straight here. He also had, he suffered from a psychological reactance, you said, and you explained that was when people do not like to be told they cannot or can do something. The permissional free spirit will do what they want to. It's also in relevance to not wanting to be controlled by anyone else other than themselves and their own free will. In other words, they don't want anyone controlling over their life. That pretty much they want to do whatever they want, so on and so forth. Is that correct?
Witness needs to answer yes or no.
Yes.
For court order.
It does say that the reactance is both emotional and behavioral, and it is a result of the patient's life of poverty and obviously wanting to have more. And you said at the end of the results of your evaluation, you said, aside detected issues, it is still determined that Jack Jones is, in fact, able to distinguish right and wrong and is still legally sane.
Yes.
Prosecution's rest.
Any cross-examination from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
It says here that the date of the conviction, it was on November 25th, 2013. Am I correct?
Yes.
The murder took place in Storyville at 1997. Am I not correct?
Was it that way?
Well, let me ask you this question. If you were faced with a giant, would you not be scared? A massive one.
Yes.
And wouldn't you say that that at a small age, because he was younger than before, that a scared child would react differently than a grown man would?
Yes.
Okay. But also, he was charged as an adult, but he was also a minor. Am I not correct?
I'm unaware of it.
Not aware. Okay, going back. Also, when he did have to go, when he also had that belongings of the giants, I'm just going to say, when he took him down, the giant was running after him, and that would have caused more harsh decisions when the giant was running after him, shouting threats. Am I not correct?
Yes.
So, also, just for this state, you actually believe that a scared child would purposely kill someone if he did not know it?
No, but a scared child would not much
Unless the child was too scared to know that he was doing right and wrong. Also, the giant said that he was threatening him and his mother. A child would do anything to protect his family, am I not right?
Yes.
So he would have to do these things, but also he wouldn't do it without a good reason. But as you stated earlier, he would be scared because of the giant and running after him and his fighter. So if I'm correcting right, the child would be too scared to be able to know right from wrong.
No.
Rest, Your Honor.
Any redirect from the prosecution?
No redirection, Your Honor.
This witness may be excused. Prosecution, call your next witness.
Prosecution calls its final witness, Mrs. Giant.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please be seated.
I'm 60 years old.
you're 60-year-old and you are the wife of the deceased?
Yes, sir.
And where is it that you reside?
My house is in Cloudland, so to say. Exactly.
And who was it that built this house?
I think my husband did.
Your husband? How long have you been married?
40 years.
Objection, relevance. I would allow it. Establishing a foundation for this witness regarding the relationship to the deceased.
Would you say you were happily married?
Yes, I was.
And what was it that you were doing at 9 a.m. on?
I was cooking my husband breakfast, as I do every morning at 9 a.m. And usually he eats 3 whole pigs and a side of beef. So,
And what was that you saw that you're doing?
well, just after I saw this little boy running from the cat flap of our back door, he runs in and I tell him to get out because my husband doesn't really appreciate people coming into his house. And so I told him, he told me, please miss, I just want something to eat. I said, never mind that. If my husband comes down, he will eat you. You need to get out. But my husband was coming down just at that time, singing his favorite song, Bebop and Bum. I was so scared for him that I told him to get to the cupboard and then off the crack one.
And what was it that Mr. Hunt did once he went downstairs?
He came down and I fed him his breakfast. And he asked me to bring out his golden goose, or goose that he laid his golden eggs. And shortly after that, he took a nap.
So he was asleep this time.
After he
And what was it that you heard after?
Well, just as I turned around to wash the dishes, I forgot completely about the boy. And so, next thing I know, I heard a squawk, and my golden goose, my goose and his golden egg was taken. And as my husband heard that, he ran outside and ran after the boy.
So you could say your husband was concerned about your property being stolen.
Yes.
And what was the next thing that you heard?
Well, I heard my husband yell, I will card you up, I'll crunch your bones to make you laugh again. Because stole our property, I feel he was right to say that because they were there. I guess that's all I heard.
And what happened next?
Sometime, I think about an hour later, Inspector Morse, he came to my house telling me that my husband's dead. They took me up in a helicopter and brought me down to have me inspected and to identify his death.
The prosecution next.
Cross-examination by the defense.
Can you recap what happened that morning? What was the boy's name?
He never told me.
We now know that Jack Jones, correct? And how many times did Jack enter the house?
3 times.
Each time he crept in?
Yes, through the cat flap.
And you had known that the first time he crept in, correct? You tried to hide him. Why'd you try to hide him?
My husband usually gets picky about who runs into our house and everything, but he doesn't get.
Well, see, the law provides that if they're breaking and entering, you can do basically whatever's in your power to stop them from breaking and entering your house, even going as far as the boarding of a cat flap. See, other than that, the boy crept into your house and you hid him. Why did you hide him from your husband?
Because he would probably kill him.
Your husband would have killed him.
Probably, or
Would you describe your husband as a violent man?
not usually.
Not usually. Did you name the hen? Would you say that the hen was a pet or just a prized possession?
I would say it's a pet.
As a pet, did you have a name for the pet?
You know?
Most households name their pets.
Objection, Your Honor. How is this relevant to the pet's name, to the case?
How do we know that the giant didn't steal the pet's stuff?
Sustained.
Why do you believe your husband would have gotten mine?
Well, like any other person just running into your house, I feel like. he
So the
would've-
boy never said he was hungry and you allowed him into the house? That never happened. Simple question. I mean, if you allowed him into the house, then there's no reason to be angry, right, Miss John? Okay, because in the Jack and Beanstalk story that the judge has and I have, there's a line where he speaks of being hungry, regardless if he's hungry or not, and you allow him into the house. Correct? You allowed him into the house. So the cat flap, that was all a hoax, or was it just a lie in court? Contempt of court?
No, he looked at our door.
So, but did he enter the cat flap? Is the question.
Yeah,
He
yes.
did. So you didn't greet him.
Well, actually, I was cooking, so I guess I wouldn't have really known.
The cooking. Did your husband have 3 pigs every morning or 3 ox?
I think they did.
Because there's discrepancies in between the story and the other story. So these are the things I'm trying to find out, Ms. John, because the thing is, I see your husband as a violent man. There have been multiple reports of your husband harassing, stealing, thieving, and even eating children. Not possibly known. I'm not saying you're involved, but if this man was so violent, there's no need to hide it.
Objection, Your Honor. Where is he getting this? That the deceased was a violent man? Stealing all the time? Murdering children? When was that? That was never mentioned.
In the phrase, or in the song rather, his favorite song was Fee Fi Fo Fum, right?
Yes.
The chorus was with in the blood of an Englishman. Okay. Not something I go around singing, but I wanted to eat and drink the blood of an Englishman. Plus the other report that I believe Detective Morris hadn't taken, if you want to bring it up. I see it as your husband a violent man. You wanted to hide this boy, right? You wanted to save him? Okay. If you wanted to save him, then he had to be hiding with something. You knew your husband had a temper.
Well, had a temper. I'm not
Has
sure.
he
I
ever
would-
taken a temper out on you?
No.
He's never taken a temper out on you. So that leaves it to be taken out somewhere else. In another place. Correct? Okay, well, regardless whether Jack did, he, it said, stole the hen, correct?
Yes.
He stole the hen. Right before he left, did you say anything to Jack? Did you run
I
to
was
Jack?
doing the dishes at the time.
Or doing the dishes?
ran out.
Was he hiding in the cupboard or the oven?
I think the first time I hid him was in the oven. The
So you've
last
hidden
time-
him twice now.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, so that means that when he came back, you didn't tell your husband, so you lied to you. You didn't tell him that he was there. Okay. This allows for you to lie to your husband a second time, a husband that, if he's aggressive, you know, you would want to hide something. Most relationships are founded by trust. You trust each other, so you would trust your husband and tell him the truth. Somebody broke into your house, correct? Wouldn't you want to tell that to your husband? Wouldn't you want to tell somebody that there was another person in your house where you sleep, where your belongings are? Unless you allow that person in the house. And unless when that person's running away, you tell him to run like the wind, because truthfully, you want to run away with that boy. You don't want to be in that house. You don't want to be with that man, because if you trusted that man, you would have told him the first time he entered the house, correct? That's all the defense has. Thank you.
Redirect?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, Your Honor. I'm gonna be absolutely blunt, I'm not gonna galvanize around the subject. Was your husband an angry man towards you, in your knowledge, per se, not what you think, per se, to you, to what you saw? Have you ever seen him be angry? Alright. And it says here you lived happily, I might want to add, for 40 years. Nothing going on during those 40 years that could have made you angry at him. I mean, despite from the occasional marital feud or dispute, all marriages happen. Happily. Do you ever have any recollection of him stealing or killing children? Drinking the blood of the Englishmen, perhaps? No recollection of that. No recollection at all. Really? All right. And also note here it said, your first words out of your mouth were, and I quote, "Who are you? Get out. Get out." At that point, you were denying him entrance to your home. Is that correct? You're saying, "Get out of my house," pretty much. All right? All right. Now it says, he said, "Please, miss, I just want something to eat." It was already known that he was hungry. He had been denied dinner and breakfast. Dinner from the night before, breakfast that morning. Okay. That still doesn't give him right to come barging into your home, is that right? If we had every poor person just barging into random people's homes on the street, what would that make society of? It'd be pretty chaotic, am I right? I believe you said, "Quit hiding this cupboard" at one point, correct? You didn't want your husband angry. You wanted to say you didn't want any, by saying this, you were saying you didn't want anything to go wrong that day, things were going fine, you don't want any kind of a hitch in the road or a bump in the road. You don't want anything, you were just wanting things to go smooth that day. You didn't, anything unnecessary, you didn't deem it necessary. All right, prosecutor has.
Are there calls some time, Rich?
Seeing as we're in a time crunch, no. Any more, this witness is excused. Any more witnesses for the
The
prosecution?
all witnesses for the prosecution, Your Honor.
Okay, prosecution rests.
The defense would like to call Jack Jones to the stand.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
The jury knows about your past experiences with Detective Morris, Storyland, PD. There's no debate that you've been a rebellious child, right? You accept that? And speaking with our psychiatrist, Dr. Hatfield, she found it that you at the time were not insane, but a lapse of sanity when you were being chased by the giant, correct? Okay. What was the giant screaming at you?
He was screaming, I'm going to eat you. At one point, he was screaming, I'm going to cut you up and make you into your bones into my bread. He was screaming a bunch of different things. Really,
Would you say that the giant was fairly violent?
oh, he was very.
Did Mrs. Giant seem scared of her husband?
She was so scared that sometimes she wouldn't even acknowledge that he was there. She was so scared she would try to hide.
And in the oven that she hid you in, it was fairly hot, wasn't it?
Yes.
I mean, something was cooked in it.
Right.
I hardly doubt you could cook a pig in an oven. Some giant, you never know. So, what would you presume with him making these angry accusations that he was going to eat you, kill you, grind your bones into bread? Would you say that he was really going to kill you and really going to eat you?
Oh yeah, I'd say he was.
And are there not rumors about the giant eating other children around the community?
Yes. Mrs. Giant said that he.
Objection, Your Honor. That's nothing but hearsay and rumors. Nothing truly proven.
Sustained.
Hearsay. What's not hearsay? You took the hint, correct?
Correct.
And were any words uttered to you by Mrs. Giant when you took the hint?
She told me to run like the wind.
If you run like the wind because he was coming at you. So you ran. You ran for your life.
Right.
You ran for your mother's life. And in that time, you may have had a lapse of sanity where you wanted to kill the giant. He was threatening your home, right?
Right. If you was in that situation, you would do something great.
I don't believe so. I can't say that I wouldn't. But I believe that in all right and honesty, when you were led into that house by Mrs. Giant, when she told you to run away, Mrs. Giant, you ran. You did what you were told.
Right.
Regardless of what people say about your past and your future. At that point in time, you did as you were told. Correct? And you responded by cutting the beanstalk down to save your family, to save yourself.
Correct.
I see no problem with that. Any person has the right to save themselves from assault. Anyone. It doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter what occasion. Regardless if you instigated or not, you have the right to save yourself from assault, however you may do it. And there's no proof that he completely chopped that beanstalk
Defense
down.
counsel, this is an examination of the witness, not closing arguments to the jury.
I believe you're a good kid, Jack. And I believe what you did, while it didn't end up in a murder, I believe it's in the right.
Cross-claim prosecution.
Absolutely. So, initially, why did you come to Mr. and Mrs. Giant's house?
Well, I just
Stumbled upon. So, you saw a house, and you just went inside.
no, Mrs. Giant directed me inside.
She directed you. When did she do that?
She directed me. She was standing outside and she just told me to come in.
According to the other statements, though, Miss Giant specifically, she said you came in through the cat flap. You.
Correct.
She also said that for you to get out twice, actually 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. She said get out, and she also said one more time, get out.
I do not recall.
I don't recall that. So, just out of sheer curiosity, why would you pick up that goose?
Well, if your family was poor and they did not have nothing, you would do the same.
So you're saying you would steal? To given the choice, you would steal again,
No, I did not say I would steal.
but that's what was implied. You see, taking something that doesn't belong to you by, I'm pretty sure everyone in here would naturally know, is stealing. Isn't that correct?
Who's to say Mr. Giant didn't say to have it?
What was that?
Who's to say Mr. Giant did not say I could have it?
Well, you see, it says here that she never told you to pick it up. You said, I thought that if me and Mom had that goose, we would not be poor anymore. So, when the man went to sleep, I grabbed the goose and the egg and I nicked it out through the little door again.
Okay, and then Mrs. John told me to run.
Ah, you see, that's where you kinda got your
Okay.
story mixed up.
If Mrs. John would have wanted the goose, she would have told me to stop. She told me to run.
She never told you to take it though. She never gave you express permission to take her property. Did she say, Mr. Jones, you can have my goose? Did she ever say that?
No, she did not.
That's what I
But
thought.
she didn't say stop with you, see?
Did she see you with the goose? Did
Yes,
she
she
know? She
seen-
said, keep you quiet. She didn't
She
know.
seen me
Hold
run
on,
out
hold on,
of the
Mr.
house.
Jones. Mr. Jones, hold on. She didn't see you out of the house. She said, go through the cat fight. You were not quite to the cat fight yet, am I right? That's what I thought. In that case, when she said, keep that goose quiet, she didn't know you were taking it. Maybe she thought you were petting it. It was still in her house. It still belonged to her.
Have
You
you
were
ever
just
petted
petting
a
her
goose?
pet goose.
Have you ever petted a goose?
No, I have not, but how is that relevant to the trial?
Well, you said maybe.
Witness needs to answer the questions as they're asked and not ask questions of the prosecution.
And she said, she said, quit run like the wind before he wakes up.
Great.
And keep that goose quiet.
Great.
She never said, take the goose and keep it quiet. She said, keep the goose quiet. She was telling you to get out of the house, as we've already covered, that she didn't want her husband to see you in the house. She never told you to take the goose. You were committing theft. You were taking something that didn't belong to you.
Not necessarily.
Prosecution rests.
Witnesses excused.
The mother of Mr. Jones.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please be seated.
Hi, Emily Jones. Jack's mother. Jack's a pretty rebellious kid. And the night before the beanstalk grew and all this fiasco happened, he was sent out because he traded the cow for beans, right? And when you threw him out of the house, how did he even supper? No dinner? No dinner. So it's safe to assume that your child was hungry? Well, a child's imagination would take them up a gigantic beanstalk, correct? When you were a child, you liked to climb trees. You get up there and you see a castle. What is your first impulse? To go into the castle. Okay. Well, if instead of going into the castle, someone allows you into the castle, that's like giving kids a candy. I mean, that's giving you everything you want, correct? So, you didn't see Jack at all between that time when you threw him out and when he came storming down the beanstalk, right? Can you describe what Jack looked like coming down the beanstalk?
He was very frightened.
So, what was he scared of?
He said that he was gonna happen, that he was gonna eat him.
Have you seen the giant? So you couldn't describe the size of the giant? Okay. Did you believe your son?
Yeah.
You
He
did
was
believe
really
your
frightened.
son? And what kind of assaults were you hearing from the giant?
He was screaming very mean
What kind of mean things? Okay.
like calling him stupid and telling me he was gonna eat him.
He was gonna eat your son. Did you take offense to that at all? That he was threatening your family?
A little bit.
And you being a grown-up, you knew not to react. Your son Jack, on the other hand, what does he know to do? He would react. So, did you hand him the axe that he chopped with? You didn't hand it to him, did you? So you didn't allow him to chop. He made a rational decision, safe to assume, and he was scared. I mean, he's still having nightmares about this, right? This has occurred many times between you and Dr. Hatfield. So, my question is, he mentally scarred Jack, probably for the rest of his life, screaming assault. He never actually touched Jack, but he screamed. All he had to do was scream, and he scared your son to death. So, would you not say your son was scared enough to commit a crime to save his son? Would you not do the same if you were that scared? Really? You care about your son, don't you? I know. And you want the best for your son. Would the best for your son be life in prison because he made a rational decision to save himself and his family? Would that make sense to you?
Cross for the prosecution.
Would you please rise?
Now, what time was it when you saw Jack again the next day?
11,
And he burst into the house? What was it that he said to you when he burst into the house?
he asked me, he said, Mom, where's Dad?
And what was your statement?
Why, Jack, what's wrong? Where have you been?
And what was his reply to your question?
He said, I climbed up a beanstalk and found a giant's house, and then the giant chased me down, and he is going to eat me. I'm very
Objection.
sorry.
We all know this. Restatement.
It's building to the prosecution's cross-examination. Your Honor.
Objection.
Proceed.
Said, I'm very frightened. I must get the axe and chop down the beanstalk and kill the giant.
So he could say he had knowledge of the giant being on the beanstalk at the time of when he desired to chop it.
I mean, the giant running.
And did you believe him when he told you this?
Yes.
Why?
He's my son.
It's your son. How did he obtain the axe? You gave it to him. So you gave your son the axe to chop down the beanstalk to kill the giant. And what was it that you and Jack did after you handed him that?
I followed him outside, and I saw a giant beanstalk had grown in our field. Jack was chopping the beanstalk down. As quickly as he could, and just as he nearly was through the stalk, I saw him in horror our time descending on the beanstalk.
And this was the first time you saw Mr. Giant. So there was no way forward to this of you being able to see or hear him.
I mean, I didn't see him, but I heard him shopping.
And what was it that happened after he chopped beanstalk?
It probably could have been called him in the car until he was headed to the field. He stayed there where he landed, and Jack ran back towards me. We went inside, and Jack showed me a goose and a golden egg, which he said he had found at the top of the beanstalk, and he said words to the effect of, "It's okay, Mom, we're rich now, the giant can't get us everything." And then I didn't know what to do, so I called him.
So his exact words were, "It's okay, we are rich now, the giant can't get us, everything will be all right."
He said, "It's okay, Mom, we're rich now, the giant can't get us everything."
That is all for prosecution arrest.
Jack, being as young as he was, and the time being scared, the psychiatrist, our psychiatrist, with multiple PhDs, not one PhD, found it credible that he had a lapse of judgment and sanity. Okay, you can't expect a child to make the same decisions that an adult would make in that situation. I mean, he's a kid. That's what it comes down to. And when one psychiatrist finds that the kid had a lapse of sanity and made a decision, you can't hold him against that when he's in fear of his life. And that is basically to summarize what our doctor would have told you. That's it.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna skip the closings on each side, and we're gonna submit the case to the jury for deliberation. Are you gonna require them to have a unanimous verdict? Probably not, or is it trying to time? Normally, the way it works, it has to be 12-0, it has to be unanimous. Anything less than 12-0 results in a hung jury, which means at some later date, the case has to be retried all over again. Now, what Jack was charged with is murder. He's charged, there's also the possibility for y'all to return a verdict for manslaughter, depending on how y'all view the evidence. There's a burglary second charge, theft of property first degree, which exceeds $2,500 in value. You're gonna need to elect a foreperson while y'all are back there, which is gonna be the person that will be in charge. You'll go back there, deliberate, you'll discuss the facts, review the charges, and see if the prosecution has met the elements. Has the prosecution proved what is required in these code sections? And it must be done beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean beyond any doubt, just beyond a doubt. That doubt has to be reasonable. You know, if they said a spaceship came down and, you know, caused him to do this or that, that is unreasonable. When you reach your verdict, come back in. That verdict must be given to the foreperson, and at that point I will ask the defendant to rise and have the foreperson read the verdict. You may be seated. All right, has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, will the defendant rise? Read the verdict.
The jury finds the defendant of murder not guilty, and to manslaughter not guilty. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of theft of property, and we find the defendant not guilty of burglary in the first, second, or third degree.
Okay. Now, theft first degree, don't get too happy. Theft first degree is a Class B felony, punishable of 2 to 20 years.